In this video, we will show you the basic principles of how to plan a balanced attic ventilation system. Calculating a balanced attic ventilation system. Start by determining how much attic ventilation your space needs. First, calculate the square footage of the attic floor space. For example, the attic in this illustration is 30 feet wide and 40 feet long, which totals 1,200 square feet. Next, calculate the NFVA. NFVA stands for Net Free Ventilation Area. In order to create a balanced system, start with the 1 to 300 attic ventilation rule. This means that you need 1 square foot of net free ventilation area, also known as NFVA or NFA, for every 300 square feet of attic floor space. Simply divide the square footage of the attic floor space by 300 to get the NFVA. Going back to our example with 1,200 square feet of attic floor space, the space needs a minimum of 4 square feet of NFVA. Many attic ventilation products are rated in square inches of NFVA. To convert square feet of NFVA to square inches, multiply by 144. Once again, using our example, 4 square feet of NFVA equals 576 square inches of NFVA. Finally, to create a balanced system, you will want to split the total NFVA equally between intake and exhaust. So in the example, we will need a minimum of 288 square inches of intake ventilation NFVA at or near the soffits, and 288 square inches of exhaust ventilation NFVA at or near the ridge. Selecting your product. You should always discuss ventilation with your roofing contractor. They can help advise you about which products are best suited for your specific property. Once you figure out which ventilation products are best for your roof, you will need to determine how much of it you will need to meet the NFVA requirement. To start, look for the NFVA rating on each product. Intake ventilation. In our example, we know we need at least 288 square inches of intake ventilation. If we use MasterFlow 16 inches by 8 inches aluminum under-eave intake vents, they have an NFVA rating of 50 square inches per vent. This means we will need 6 of them to reach the required minimum 288 square inches of intake ventilation. Alternatively, if we use Cobra Intake Pro rooftop intake vent, it has an NFVA of 9 square inches per lineal foot of vent. So if we choose this option, we would need 32 lineal feet to meet the minimum NFVA intake ventilation requirement for this attic. Exhaust ventilation. The same approach applies to determining the amount of exhaust ventilation product you will need. If we use a Cobra 4-foot plastic ridge vent, it has an NFVA of 18 square inches per lineal foot. Therefore, we will need 16 linear feet of venting to meet the minimum exhaust ventilation requirement. But if we use MasterFlow SSB 960 slantback metal roof louver, each unit has an NFVA rating of 60 square inches. So we need 5 vents to reach the minimum NFVA exhaust ventilation requirement of 288 square inches for this attic. Please note that the 1 to 300 rule is a minimum recommendation when a balanced system of intake and exhaust ventilation is used. Local codes may require that you use more. For example, some local building codes require that you use the 1 to 150 rule, which increases the minimum amount of attic ventilation required. Always consult local building codes in your area for details. The balanced ventilation rule and other considerations. Once you have picked your products and figured out how much of each you need, you should double-check that your selections comply with the balanced ventilation rule. The NFVA rating of intake should always match the NFVA rating of exhaust. This type of balanced system allows the 1 to 300 ventilation rule to be used. It seems simple, but any imbalance, especially when there's more exhaust, can make your system less effective. Another important principle is to never mix exhaust ventilation products. Multiple exhaust vent types on the same attic space can create an unbalanced system and may lead to an exhaust vent functioning as intake, something referred to as a short circuit. This condition, also known as turbulence, may prevent the intake vents at or near the soffit from working properly. Effectively, only the top portion of the attic space is ventilated in this case. It may also increase the risk of weather infiltration being pulled into the attic space. The last principle is to watch your placement. For a system to function properly, intake needs to be located at the lowest part of the attic space, on the roof. This is typically at or near the soffit. Likewise, exhaust should be located at the highest part of the attic space, typically at or near the ridge of the roof. These calculations and principles will help you plan a balanced attic ventilation system. But you should always remember to discuss ventilation with your roofing contractor so that you are sure to take into consideration any specific conditions on your property. For help in calculating the amount of ventilation needed for your attic, visit gaf.com/vent calculator. GAF